Welcome back to Impolite History and the second episode of our coverage on the Ruby Ridge incident. In the first episode, me and my co-host Mandy and our guest Brandy from our sister podcast, Darkness Debaters, covered the leading up to the standoff and a bit of the backstory, as well as the initial events of the siege leading up to HRT sniper Lon Horiuchi shooting Kevin Harris, Randy Weaver, and Vicky Weaver, killing Vicky Weaver. In this episode, we will go over what brought the standoff to a close and the fallout resulting immediately after. Any opening thoughts?
I just keep going back to thinking, kind of what we were taught in school and just how incorrect it really was. I vaguely remember something about Vicky Weaver, that we were told that she fired first, like that she was just this crazy, protecting her man kind of woman. And I remember there being talk that she was more dangerous than Randy Weaver was. I want to think I heard that on the news. Like they were kind of, they weren't reporting it like this is what officials say. It was like their opinion, but they were talking about, oh, well, she was more dangerous than he was. And, they kind of went with the matriarch story. Like he was never the one they needed to worry about. It was always her. And she put herself in that situation. I don't remember ever hearing that she was holding that baby until I started looking into it myself. I don't remember any reports that she was holding a baby. For a long time, I didn't even know there was a newborn on the property. And when I did look at that, some of the stories say he was in like a safe room, like they had put the baby in a safe room in the house to where that was like bulletproof. And which sounds like a fantastical story that you tell the public to keep the public from hating you. We don't want the public mad that we shot a mother holding her newborn in the head behind a closed door. So we're going to say that there was a safe room in the house. And I really wish, and I've looked for them. I've tried to find those reports from back then, and I can't find them. And, some of this was our school teachers telling us these things. I wish I knew where they heard it from. But that was, we were little kids being told, look, the government saved us from the big bad wolf. And I'll tell you what, once you find out that they lied about that, it has caused some doubt for some other things for me personally. What do you think, Brandy?
Yeah, I think that throughout the years, the government has lied about a lot of things. So far, from what we're learning from MC, this seems like another story told on their part. I'll just put it that way. They leave out some stuff and then narrate some stuff to kind of fit their storyline. Like I said from the beginning, they're probably, I don't say probably now, there's definitely a different way they could have went about this than to do what they did, going in guns blazing, shooting everybody, and just going to town right off the bat. It sounds like he was willing to abide by the law, and if they would just walked up to him and said, looky here, it sounds like he probably would have just went with them. My guess, he's got his family there, his kids there, his newborn baby there. Why would he want to put them in this position? But when you come in guns blazing and he don't know what up from down in that second, I can relate to him fighting back.
As well as the overall problem with how they initially brought the charges against him, and then the clerical error with the court that the judge refused to waive the bench warrant over. I mean, at that point, you've got a man who is already distrusting of the government, basically looking at the government, actively having it out for it. Is it really paranoia if they actually have it out for you? I mean...
Right. And they've made it clear they have it out for him. Like there's no doubt in my mind. He was definitely a target. It wasn't just we're doing our job and we were upholding the law and he has broken the law, so we're after him now. Like, they went out of their way to do this to him.
At this point, knee deep in the standoff, the score is, if you could call it that, the Weaver's family dog, Stryker, has been killed. Randy Weaver's 14-year-old son, Samuel, has been shot in the back and killed. Randy Weaver has been shot and wounded. The family friend, Kevin Harris, has been shot and wounded. And Vicky Weaver, the matriarch, has been shot and killed. And that's only on the Weaver side. On the federal side, Deputy Marshal Francis Deegan Jr. was shot and killed in the return fire of the initial shootout. From what I've been able to gather and tell, no other federal elements besides Deegan were harmed during this standoff. Leading up towards the end, the FBI negotiators were not getting anywhere. I mean, obviously, because Randy Weaver just watched them murder his 14-year-old son and his wife while she held their newborn baby, and then was shot, and their family friend Kevin Harris was shot as well. All of this over a bench warrant. All of this over a bench warrant that stemmed from federal firearms charges that he was entrapped into. He was not going to listen to...
And a clerical error.
And a clerical error. He was not going to listen to any federal elements. So, the FBI started bringing in civilian negotiators, including veteran activist Bo Gritz. Bo Gritz was a fellow veteran of Randy Weaver, someone that Randy himself actually respected. Bo eventually convinced Randy to allow him to enter their home to kind of get the measure of everything, make sure the kids were all right, make sure Vicky and the newborn baby were okay, to see the extent of the injuries of Kevin Harris and of Randy Weaver. When he got in and saw the horrifying result of what had happened to the Weaver family, at this point, he had already known what the FBI and the ATF and the federal marshals had been doing as far as the psychological stuff goes, as far as using loudspeakers to tell the family, Mrs. Weaver, we had pancakes. What did your kids have? You should bring them out for some pancakes, trying to get them to surrender. He walked out to the men in charge and said, and this is a loose quote, but still kind of a quote. He said in a roundabout kind of way, boy, you guys really fucked this one up. Bo Gritz was eventually able to convince Randy Weaver and Kevin Harris and their Randy Weaver's daughters to surrender. And Randy Weaver and Kevin Harris were taken in and arrested. Randy Weaver was arrested on his federal failure to appear, and I believe on charges of first-degree murder in relation to the capital offense of killing Deputy Deegan, as well as Kevin Harris, because Kevin Harris was the one who actually fired the shot that killed Deegan. Now, Bo Gritz had promised Randy Weaver, as part of the condition of getting them to surrender, that he was going to get him the best attorney that he could. And he did. Jerry Spence was the Weavers and Harris's defense attorney. And during the successful defense, Jerry Spence was able to accuse the agencies that were involved of criminal wrongdoing, the FBI, the Marshals, ATF, and the U.S. State Attorney's Office. Not only was he able to accuse them in open trial before a judge and a jury of their peers, he was able to win and convince them, because the facts were there, because Randy Weaver had been entrapped, because a clerical error led to his bench warrant, because there is no definitive proof, one way or the other, that the U.S. Marshals identified themselves before the first shots were fired. In the resulting civil case, the Weavers won a combined out-of-court settlement of $3.1 million, whereas Harris was awarded $380,000. No amount of money was going to bring Samuel back.
Right.
And no amount of money was going to bring Vicky back. Weaver would live the rest of his life vehement upon the fact that his family and the woman he loved had been victimized by the U.S. government. A government that, despite being found liable in civil court, despite being basically proven in criminal court during his trial, were in the wrong, refused to acknowledge or accept responsibility for what happened. Lon Horiuchi would be indicted on charges of, I believe, first-degree manslaughter. Let me check that real quick. I want to make sure that I am... Nope, just manslaughter. Of Vicky. But a new prosecutor had been elected to the county, and controversially, he closed the case. So, Lon Horiuchi would face no charges for the shooting death of Vicky Weaver. The behavior of government agents during the events of Ruby Ridge have long been analyzed and criticized. There was, in the most polite terms I can think of, no small amount of fucking up on everybody's side, as far as the federal government is concerned. Was Randy Weaver and his wife, Vicky Weaver, a little off the deep end? You could say that. I mean, Vicky Weaver had sent letters to senators and to a sitting U.S. president. A bunch of biblical stuff. The, what do they call it? The Queen of Babylon, something, I can't remember exactly. It was a bunch of end of the world type of stuff. There was never any threats, but it was a bunch of very religious, very dogmatic, very criticizing letters that were sent to various members of the government by Vicky Weaver. That being said,
nothing that warranted her death, or that made them anything more than doomsday preppers.
Had
at the very worst,
yeah,
you know,
had any threats?
I was going to say, was any of that really illegal? Or, I mean, she has a right to her opinion, just like anybody else.
Had any threats been made, Vicky Weaver would have had an arrest warrant out for herself, considering who she was writing. But obviously, no actual threats were made. She was just dogmatic, set in her beliefs, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, freedom of religion and freedom of expression are both protected in the Constitution, no matter how unnerving or, you know, some might say disagreeable we might find them.
Right, and they're protected. You're protected from the government specifically.
So the tone of Ruby Ridge is kind of the setup for another subject that I hope we get to cover soon on the channel, which is the Siege of Waco. And
I'm ready for that one.
Just like Ruby Ridge, I believe, from my studying into it, the government, particularly the ATF and the FBI, did, as I said earlier, no small amount of fucking up.
Yeah.
There's a little more nuance to it, considering David Koresh's part in it, and the Branch Davidians. A much bigger group, and not just a single family.
Right.
That being said, history, especially recent history, is impolite. I will say this. Do you want to know something interesting? It's believed that Ruby Ridge and I believe either... I can't remember if it happened in the middle or if it happened during or slightly after. But I know Ruby Ridge kind of preceded these two other events. You have Ruby Ridge, you have Waco, and you have the Oklahoma City bombing of the FBI building.
Yeah.
And the OKC bombing was directly related to Ruby Ridge, and I believe to Waco as well.
It was. He was there. I believe he was there at Ruby Ridge. The OKC bomber? Yes. I believe
he might have been one of the protesters that was...
Yeah. Because if I remember correctly, wasn't there people out there kind of just like at Waco, like people kind of watching and at Ruby Ridge and kind of just observing what was going on like they did at Waco?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Ruby Ridge happened before Waco.
It did. Yes, it did.
Either a few months to a few years before.
Okay, yeah.
It was a few years.
It wasn't that long before.
Yes.
It was to the point where the hostage sniper, Lon Horiuchi, the one who shot and killed Vicky Weaver, he was on the same team that participated in Waco.
Yeah,
and
he was at
when David Koresh was allegedly exiting the Branch Davidians' compound to surrender himself. Allegedly. I really need to stress allegedly, because we don't know this. But allegedly, David Koresh was going to surrender himself, and Lon Horiuchi took a shot that injured David and led to the standoff. Very, very big allegedly. I've heard that. That is not something that, as far as I can say or find, is actually confirmable. It's believed. I wasn't there, and I'm not going to sit here and say that it's the God's honest truth. I just think that, considering that we do know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Lon Horiuchi was the one that shot and killed Vicky Weaver, whether it was by accident or on purpose, we'll never know. But I think that's worth mentioning.
Well, there is a wonderful documentary about Waco that is on Netflix, I believe, that is a pretty big deep dive with new evidence and all kinds of stuff like that. Camera footage, video footage that a lot of people had never seen. It was eye-opening for me. The Waco thing always seemed kind of sketch to me, even when it was going on, even when the news was saying all the things about David Koresh. And he didn't help his case by the way he would present on camera either.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of theories about David Koresh that we'll get into on that episode.
Certainly. Just a lot of the stuff about touching kids and things of that nature is alleged. A lot of the stuff about him having multiple wives is alleged. That being said, David Koresh, before he became David Koresh, before he became the leader of the Branch Davidians, had a very, very interesting and impolite history. He was by no means the most stand-up individual you would have ever met in your life, and that is definitely something we will have to get into. He wasn't an angel.
Yeah.
I'll say that much. Was he a devil? It's kind of up to interpretation. But I will say I have my beliefs about what happened in Waco the same way I have my beliefs about what happened in Ruby Ridge, and I'm going to do my best to make sure that my biases against the actions of our government and against the fact that they still refuse to accept responsibility impact the way that we cover these subjects.
Absolutely.
I'm going to do my best not to let it impact.
I would agree. Yeah.
All of our fellow history lovers, please comment and let us know what you think. Let us know what you agree with, what you don't agree with, especially if you watched the news coverage, if you were around back then, or if you've done a ton of research. Maybe there's stuff we left out. Maybe there's some things we didn't know. We do try to do our due diligence so we know what we're talking about. And we have shared a lot of opinions on here, so we want to hear yours too. And we want to hear what everybody thinks. This is a very interesting topic, and I'm really glad it got brought up, and I'm so glad that my beautiful cousin Brandy was able to join us for this episode, or for these 2 episodes. It was awesome having you here.
Thank you for having me. And I would just say that it was definitely impolite, mostly on the government's part.
Absolutely. Well, MC, until next time, can't wait to get into some more stuff.
Yes, ma'am.
And hopefully we can bring Brandy back in the future.
I think this subject, on a scale of polite to impolite, gets an impolite parentheses government.
Yes. All right.
Agree.
Well, that's going to do it for Impolite History for this time, guys. Take care, everybody. Bye.